Hey guys, how's it going? So what's prompting this video is a comment somebody left on a previous video where we were talking about temperature, and this person said that she's been having like a temperature of 35 Celsius. That's like her normal temperature, apparently now. And she doesn't shiver or anything, but her doctor has tested her for her thyroid, and the test came back normal, but she still doesn't buy it. She still believes there's something wrong. Okay, so this prompted me to think about this. It just reminded me of this dynamic that we all have probably experienced, that is very common. It's not about this specific case that I want to talk about. I want to use this as an example of a general dynamic. And this dynamic is that when we go to the doctor, when we come with symptoms and then we are told there's nothing wrong, we tend not to believe it. And for good reason. I'll get into that. I went through this for years, so I understand. But we tend not to believe it when we're told, well, everything is fine, everything is fine, all the tests are normal. I myself have tested my thyroid like at least 5 times. I just went and I said, no, let's get a thyroid test. You only need to test your thyroid once, and then But this is, again, it's not about the specific example. It's a generalization. In general, we have this idea, both in medicine, it's shifting, but it's still there to a large degree, and in society at large, that pain equals damage, or fatigue equals illness, or just in general, symptoms mean problem in the body. And when we go in and we describe our symptoms, we have a complaint, the doctor examines us, we get tests done, and we're told that we found nothing wrong. Well, we can't believe it, because we're suffering. We got pain, fatigue, brain fog, you name it, a lot of stuff wrong with us. We know we're not lying. We know we're not crazy. We know it's not depression or just depression. You could get depressed either as a consequence or just because for other reasons. But this thing is not depression. We know that, and they tell us there's nothing wrong. And so what are we supposed to do with it? They don't offer an alternative explanation. So okay, there's nothing wrong. How come I'm feeling like this? What am I supposed to do now? You just tell me there's nothing wrong. So it's the most natural thing to think, well, they must have missed something, something else, there's no, maybe there's something that hasn't been discovered by medicine yet, some hidden infection or something, and that's a pretty normal response. I did that. There's nothing wrong with it, it's nothing to be ashamed of. But if you're going to continue to believe that, it's going to be really difficult to move forward. Again, speaking from personal experience. And so the whole thing comes down to, what is the explanation? Then why am I having symptoms? And there isn't like a totally bulletproof model that explains every little bit of the equation, exactly how this stuff works and how these kinds of symptoms develop. But there's a good picture that's been forming. My sort of trigger for my recovery was Dr. Sarno. And as I've mentioned in other videos, I believe he got a lot of things right. But his biggest insight was that fear, uncertainty, and fear of symptoms amplifies and perpetuates the symptoms. So it becomes a vicious circle. So the thing to realize is there could be an alternative explanation to all of your symptoms. And that is not that there's illness in the traditional sense, not that there's damage in the traditional sense, but just the way your brain is processing sensory input and the world around it has changed. So this is to do with neuroplasticity, right? Just the way the software is running, the hardware is fine, but the software is glitchy, and it needs to be sort of readjusted. And we do that, the way, I talk about in this video, by gradually letting go of the fears, of the uncertainties. But of course, the interaction with medical professional tends to exacerbate uncertainty. Either we're told there's nothing wrong, we can't find anything wrong, and they send us home, with no anything, or even worse, they're dismissive, like, oh, it's all in your head. We know that one, and now some people use that phrase, oh, it's all in your head because your brain, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I just don't like that phrase, It just brings back so many memories of people, using that phrase to dismiss you and to say, oh, yeah, you stop, wallowing in, just get yourself together, that sort of thing. So I don't like that. So either they tell us there's nothing wrong and I don't know, shrug, or they don't believe us, or whatever. But you got to realize that there's an alternative explanation, and that is that threat perception has increased in the brain, and that's one way to look at it. And your brain is processing threat differently, and your cognitive understanding, your cognitive model of what is going on with you, what is happening, will influence the symptoms, which is kind of crazy, but it's true, and it makes sense after you think about it for a little while. So I'm not going to get into like the full model. I'll just briefly summarize it, and I'm still sort of developing a more and more accurate picture, and that's why I think it's important to refine our understanding of this, to get a more and more accurate picture that will be agreeable with people, that people can say, yeah, I can see how that could happen to me. Because the more accurate it is, the more likely it is to be acceptable. For example, Dr. Saro's stuff is unacceptable to a lot of people because they throw out all the good stuff, because like there's the thing with the repressed and the Freudian thing and the repressed emotions, that just the way he talks about it just bothers people. They say, oh, this is bullshit, my symptoms are real. Yes, they're real. We know they're real. So this is a shift that needs to be made. Again, I feel like I'm rambling a little bit, but I just wanted to talk about this dynamic, to bring it up. Maybe people will comment in the comments. Just let me know where you're at with this. If you're still in the phase where you're thinking, well, the tests are just wrong or whatever, or whether you've had that shift and how the shift occurred for you. I'd like to hear it. Maybe other people would benefit from it too. That's all for now. I'll talk to you next time. Bye bye.